White text over video of past events. Logo, Chicago Cultural Accessibility Consortium. Professional Development Series presents Accessible Services Showcase, Project Potential Part 2, American Sign Language. On stage, an ASL interpreter signs while a man introduces three people.
Our first presentation will be from our ASL team. I'll introduce Havilah Grace, our ASL manager, and our two performance interpreters, Susan Elizabeth Rangel and Lizzie Rangel.
So again, my name is Havilah Grace. I do a lot of accessibility work around Chicago. My area of expertise is around ASL. I took a class for fun and then started meeting deaf people and then realized that the shows I were in weren't accessible. So that's how I started learning about all of this stuff. So if I can do it, you can too.
Susan Elizabeth signs while an off-screen interpreter vocalizes.
My name is Susan Elizabeth, and obviously you can see I'm deaf. And I really love theater. I have a passion for theater, and I wanted to, the goal is to provide accessibility. And I'm actually an ASL manager, and I try to provide equal access so that the deaf can have the same experience that other theater goers have. And it's really exciting to be here today with you all.
So first, Susan Elizabeth and I wanted to talk about why have interpreters? You saw that there were captions up there, so why have interpreters in addition to captioning? Did you want to talk a little bit about that, Susan Elizabeth?
Yes. It's important to understand that American Sign Language and English are structurally different. So you have to take the English and make it visually appropriate. You have to have a visual of what's going on. So you're interpreting and you're giving a visual description of what is going on. So having the caption there is fine, but you have some individuals who are deaf and English is not their native language that they use. So for example, the English sentence, a car is rolling down the hill. Because English is not my first language, it may take time to interpret or to translate what is going on. And it may look like this, the car rolling down the hill.
She arcs her arm with her hand half closed.
This is what it would look like in American Sign Language. But the English sentence would be, a car is rolling down the hill. And that can give the audience the experience that they need. There are varying nuances that can't be shown in captioning too, like facial expressions. It's hard to see that in the English translation, but in American Sign Language, you can incorporate that, and that gives the audience all the access that they need. I mean, I don't want to keep going on and on. I'm trying to be mindful of my time, and you guys have to let me know, because I can really keep going, because, you know. Is there anything else someone else wants to add?
Yeah, okay. I think that's good. So now we're going to talk a little bit about having an ASL master, or what we had today, which is an ASL master and also a CDI. Can you talk a little bit about that for us?
Okay. So these are two different roles. You have the ASL master who assesses the interpreters to make sure that they're actually fitting the language of the deaf audience members, that they're incorporating the facial expressions that can convey the varying nuances in the English language, that they're capturing the concepts. You have some cultures that rely heavily upon that, so you have to be culturally aware as well. So that's the importance of having an ASL master or director there, that they're able to kind of gauge to make sure that it's a satisfactory experience for deaf theater goers.
I think also, just from maybe an interpreter perspective, maybe I can speak on behalf of, I don't know. It's nice probably to have an ASL master there when you're trying to figure out a concept or wanting to make sure it's accurate, conceptually accurate, and also ASL masters have a master of the ASL language. And so you can really create things you never thought you could create before by providing an ASL master for your interpreting team.
Lizzie.
I completely agree with that. Oh, okay, hands down. I completely agree with that. I would say that when, like, going over the script, if I had developed a way that I wanted to sign it in my head, conferring with the ASL master on this one, I'm like, oh, okay, what I had was completely not what I should do, so let's do your way, because that is it just makes it more clear and second nature to listen to, opposed to just thinking about it and having it develop from a hearing person's perspective opposed to a deaf person whose native language that is.
And also, while we're talking about this, the reason why I love CDIs and hiring deaf interpreters is, why not hire deaf, right? What are the ways that we can hire deaf people in our theater companies and not only provide services, but have them included in the work? And so if you're curious about how to work with a CDI, Susan Elizabeth can talk about that further when you're networking afterwards. So we'll go on to the next thing. Something is really important. We'll just have a list of a few things that we just want to impart and not, overwhelm you with a lot of things. So for those who are front of house and having interpreters, hiring interpreters, we want to talk a little bit about lighting and how important lighting is.
Havala passes the mic to Susan Elizabeth, who moves to take it and sign at the same time.
Okay.
Both women laugh. Havala keeps the mic while Susan Elizabeth signs.
Again, ASL is a visual language, so that means that you have to be able to see. You have to have clear visibility. So it's nice when you have appropriate lighting, but you have to have the appropriate light balance, the appropriate dim, make sure there's no shadowing, so that the deaf individuals are able to see the interpreters, because, if the lights are down on the stage and on the interpreters, they can't enjoy the performance. So it's important to have appropriate lighting and to avoid shadows, that cast either on the face or on the hands. And so they're able to catch the little things, those nuances I spoke of, and lighting actually helps with that. Because the actors have inflection, and the inflection is shown on the face of the interpreters. So you need to have that match where they're able to catch it. So that's why lighting is really important. Do either of you want to add something? Did I miss anything?
I wanted to add actually one more thing, because I know that some people said they were marketing folks out there. I know that people want to market their shows to deaf communities and ASL user communities, and it's really important for your promotions to have the right lighting, because shadows will also, it's harder to see the language. So that's important to think about. Sometimes normal videographers think this is the perfect lighting, but it's really hard to understand and see. So you want to make sure it's bright, there's no shadows on the face.
Okay, so speaking off of Havala and Susan Elizabeth, just something to think about is, I know lighting, we keep repeating the word lighting and lighting, but if you place the interpreters a little bit off the stage and the light does not hit them, the access is not fully there, which I think you guys would think is pretty obvious, but a lot of theater companies actually don't want the interpreters to be as seen as close to the actors and actresses. And so that's something to think about, that it's more of an accessibility thing than a look at the interpreters thing.
Yeah, and we'll talk a little bit about more placement in just a moment, and I'm going to keep us going on time here. So something that we really want to talk about is the casting of interpreters. I know that a lot of people just think we need to have someone who knows American Sign Language, and we'll just hire any type of interpreter. And so we want to talk a little bit about the importance of also thinking about casting your interpreters. And this is a big subject right now about casting and how we cast different shows, and there's controversies. And I want people to think about how that is, what's happening in Chicago, and talking about and using that to apply to interpreters as well. And I'm going to pass this over to Susan Elizabeth to talk about casting right now.
Oh, you captured that perfectly. That's so important. It's important to cast the interpreters appropriately because you have to look and make sure that, you know, the interpreters that you pick, will they fit with this particular character? You have to find the appropriate match. Culturally, that's another aspect that you need to be mindful of. So you don't want someone who just graduated from school coming in because there may not be a match with the act or the character or the show. You have to look at age. You have to look at the person's knowledge as well as the language. Personality. They have to fit with the character. And it has to match with the play. So these are some of the things that you want to consider.
And I'm going to wait for Dr. Williams, my professor. Now I'm graduated, but still.
The ASL interpreter shifts location.
Will always be Dr. Williams to me.
Dr. Williams finishes signing with a demure head tilt down.
We were talking about casting. Right. Yeah.
Dr. Williams gestures to Havala, who turns, having missed the demure posture joke. They grin at each other.
So one of my some of my proudest moments for casting is actually casting these two lovely people right next to me.
The co-presenters.
So the first time I was lucky enough to hire them was for La Ruta at Steppenwolf. And those who haven't seen the show is about a Mexican mother and daughter. And here we have two Mexican-American mother-daughter duo. Like, how perfect is that? And I think it really enriched the story. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Steppenwolf because that's where I do ASL coordination. And for Miss Black for President, we had a lot of queer LGBT identified interpreters, and we also had a drag queen in drag interpreting the performance. So although you can't always find the perfect match for that, and there's lots of licensure stuff that can get a little tricky to find the right match, but it's important to think about that, to how to enhance those stories to make sure that it's matching culturally and story-wise, and so that the deaf consumer doesn't feel left out and isn't missing part of the magic of that show. So now we're going to talk a little bit about placement, but before we do that, I wanted to add a few things because I know Laura's going to talk about it in a second. But ways to make sure that your interpreting team feels really prepared is having a script early on, a video early on, and I've realized in my short time doing this is that if you put the show later in the run, then the interpreters have more time to come and see the show and more time to view the show. So with that, we're going to talk a little bit about placement. And so we're going to do a little rewind moment. We're going to have the interpreters go back to show you what they did, and then we'll show you what a non-ideal placement is.
Two women in an office. One is seated with her eyes closed. Inset video shows two ASL interpreters facing camera.
Really try opening those eyes. That's it. Stop trying. Another relaxation. Water down your face and down your body. And you just sleep. Deeper, deeper, deeper. And every time I say the word sleep,
Snaps fingers.
you go even deeper than you are right now. That's it. And every time that's right. And every time I say the word sleep, you go even deeper than you are right now. Once you understand and accept that, nod your head yes. That's right, because each time I say that word sleep, deeper than you are right now. Because the deeper you go, the better you feel. And the better you feel, the deeper you go. And each time I say that word sleep, 10 times deeper. And I wonder if you've noticed that the more you breathe, the more you relax. And the
Hold,
more you
please.
relax.
Full view of stage. At left, the ASL interpreters. At right, the office. Havala.
Great. So as you can see, the interpreters were lit really well, and you can see the performances, and you can see the actors and the interpreters. Did you want to add to that, Susan Elizabeth, about placement?
Yes, in this scene, you can see both interpreters working, and you can get all of the nuances of the language. You can see their bodies. You've got a full picture of what's going on.
So in this particular setup, we have the reserved seating for those who use the sign language interpreters directly in front of us. However, in other theaters, they might be perhaps closer to where the interpreters are positioned.
Cool. All right, now we're going to show you what not to do, because that's more fun.
Return to office. Inset video shows 2 ASL interpreters facing left.
Really try opening those eyes. That's it. Stop trying. Another relaxation. Water down your face and down your body, and you just sleep. Deeper, deeper, deeper. And every time I say the word sleep, you go even deeper than you are right now. Once you understand and accept that, nod your head yes. That's right, because every time I say the word sleep, you go even deeper than you are right now. Because the deeper you go, the better you feel. And the better you feel, the deeper you go. And I wonder if you've noticed that the more you breathe, the more you relax.
Hold, please.
Havala.
So here you can see that our audience here can't see the interpreters. Also, something you want to think about is straining.
Moves head side to
Is
side.
the action happening over here and you have the interpreters here? You're constantly going like this. So sometimes it's nice to move the interpreters. And something Susan, Elizabeth, and I really want to impart on you today is the concept, this is our ideal world, so we're not, don't do it if you're scared, but this is our ideal world to get a theater company to do this for us, is to have shadows. So your actors will have them shadowing so the audience can be a part of everything. There's complete equal access. You want to talk about that, Susan, Elizabeth, a little bit?
Yes, I mean, in a real world, you can't always do that. But yeah, if you can set that up beforehand, if you can meet with the cast and participate in rehearsal, it becomes more comfortable and easier to do that. That's something that I would imagine in the future. I would like to see more of it. Deaf people can see both the actor and the interpreter as the action is happening right there in real time. They don't have to pick and choose. Am I going to look over here at the interpreters or am I going to look over here at the actors?
Yeah. So we just, encourage you to do that. Who wants to be the first here? All right. Okay. With that, do you want to add anything else?
Yes. I noticed that, as interpreters, sometimes our positions are blocked. And if you don't have access by one interpreter being blocked by another, that's still not providing access. So you need to really look at things in a holistic view. And sometimes that can be a challenge, but you need to keep that in the back of your mind, particularly related to staging.
I think I'm going to wrap this up, but if you have more questions, we'll be around and happy to talk. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Fade to black. White text on black background. ChicagoCulturalAccess.org. More information and free workshops. Calendar of accessible cultural events in Chicago. Free accessibility equipment loans, including audio description kits and caption screens. Credits for Part 2, ASL Interpretation. Havala Grace, ASL Manager. Susan Elizabeth Rangel, ASL Master and Certified Deaf Interpreter. Lizzie Rangel, ASL Interpreter. Jason Harrington, Facilitator. Jennifer McElroy and Leandra Williams, ASL Interpreters. Scene from Project Potential by Isaac Gomez, directed by Laura Alcala Baker, featuring Erica Cruz Hernandez as Belinda and Leslie Sofia Perez as Adeline. ASL interpreters Lizzie Rangel and Susan Elizabeth Rangel. Thank you to our sponsors: ACS Interpreting and Training Services, Foxhole Creative, Harris Theater for Music and Dance, Horizons for the Blind, the Michael and Mona Heath Fund, Steppenwolf Theater Company. Video production by Foxhole Creative, Tim Frank, producer, Tony Schiavone, camera operator, Alex Moore, camera operator and editor, Haley Blumquist, audio technician. Video audio description by BridgetMelton.com. Video fades to black.